Okay, it is 8 o'clock and this is the Judicial and Public Safety Committee meeting. Let's call this meeting to order. Can I get a roll call?
Chair Evans.
Here.
Member Chaplin.
Here.
Member Childress.
Here.
Member Desart.
Here.
Member Eckhoff. Member Guston. Member Krajewski. Member Ozog. Member Schwarzy. Member Tornatore. Member Yu. Member Zay.
Okay, we have a quorum. The first up would be the public comments. As a reminder, each public comment has 3 minutes and not to exceed a total of 30 minutes. So first up in person is Jax West.
So I'm here to speak today about our sheriff saying he will not enforce the gun reform law. He does not get to make the laws. He has to enforce the laws that are there that our legislators have imposed. So I believe if he doesn't want to follow the laws, then either he needs to be removed from office or we take away his pay, because I, as a taxpayer, don't want to pay somebody who is not going to follow the laws. Thank you.
Thank you. And these are the emailed public comments.
Good morning. The first public comment comes from Marita Radava, subject matter gun assault ban. Comment reads, as a physician in DuPage County, I fully support the gun assault ban. This is important to save innocent lives. End of that public comment. The next public comment comes from Joanne Trumbull, subject matter Protect Illinois Communities Act. Comment reads, last Monday, our state took a huge step forward in public safety. For our DuPage County Sheriff to refuse to enforce to new law because he doesn't agree with it is not okay. I don't know what steps can be taken by the county board, but if there's anything the board can do, please take those steps. End of that public comment. Next comment is from Maria Beverchik. Subject matter DuPage County Sheriff blatant denial of enforcing law. I am outraged that the sheriff made the public statement to not uphold the law in regards to the assault weapons ban. He swore an oath to obey the law of the state and to protect the community. He is breaking that oath, and by the trust of the community should have in him. I expect that this committee make a statement that the rule of law is important until the Supreme Court says a law is unconstitutional, that law enforcement must enforce it. In 1994, these weapons were banned. That federal law had bipartisan support. What has happened to the GOP party of DuPage? Tolerance for the sheriff's behavior indicates to me that the county officers and a committee accept his comments are legally truthful. You must condemn his formal statement and reprimand him. I would support his removal of office for politicizing children, families, and residents' safety. Your non-action is not acceptable. End of that public comment. Next comments from Natalie Beglin, subject matter Sheriff Mendrick's letter. Comment reads, I live in Cook County, but live 1 block away from County Line Road. I am so very disappointed and disgusted in the letter that Sheriff Mendrick sent out stating he was not going to comply with the Protect Illinois Communities Act. What? He is not above the law. Laws are in place to serve all of us. We need our state leaders to set better examples. What is sent out and wrote is reckless. If he personally has an issue with the new law, he should go through the proper judicial channels to attempt to change the new law. I personally am for the assault weapons ban, as these are military weapons, should not be sold. I would think all police officers would want to support in not adding more of this type of arsenal and being able to track it if it is used. Thank you. End of that public comment. Next comments from Ray Belk, subject matter Sheriff Mendrick's unlawful behavior. Sheriff Mendrick's irresponsible and dangerous letter about his intention to ignore the new assault weapons ban deserves his immediate censure and termination. He's obviously more interested in protecting his political career, which is propped up by right-wing pro-gun thugs, than protecting the safety of his constituents. He is unfit for public service. Why do we need a sheriff after all? The resources and budget allocated to this rogue individual would be better allocated to state municipal officers who respect the law. End of that public comment. Next public comment from Amy Lippert. Subject matter Sheriff Mendrick should do his job or resign. To the Judicial and Public Safety Committee, I am the American History professor at Elmhurst resident and a wife and mother. I am writing to express my outrage over DuPage County Sheriff Mendrick's statement in response to the passage of House Bill 5471, the Protect Illinois Communities Act. His utter failure to do his job could result in innocent blood on his hand. If the next in a long series of mass shootings, always with an assault weapon, occurs in his jurisdiction. Bottom line, Mendrick was elected to enforce the law and not interpret it. If he wouldn't uphold his oath and enforce the law, he should resign or be recalled. If he wants to interpret laws, he can try to become a judge. He also refused to enforce the COVID-19 rules. As the Kaiser Family Foundation reported on July 8th of 2022, firearms recently became the #1 cause for death for children in the United States, surpassing motor vehicle deaths and those caused by other injuries. The foundation also reported that the United States is alone among peer nations in the number of child firearm deaths. In no other similarly large or wealthy country are firearm deaths in the top 4 causes of mortality, let alone the number 1 cause of death among children. Don't even get me as an American historian started on the fallacy of interpreting the Second Amendment to apply it to killing machines that didn't exist in the wildest imaginations of the founders. Assault weapons pose a well-evidenced threat to the life and liberty of our fellow citizens. We haven't even required basic firearm insurance, sufficient training, or safe storage on the national level, even after multiple generations of our children have now been raised and are being raised in an age of rampant school shootings. The people of DuPage County deserve better. Our children deserve better. Sincerely, Amy Lippert, PhD. End of that public comment. Next public comment is from Dale Holmquist, subject matter PICA. Comment: as a sheriff cannot decide which laws to abide by. I reside several blocks from DuPage County and find it appalling that an authority figure in public safety would make such a callous statement about the recent change made in Illinois. This is about public safety. Isn't that the sheriff's responsibility? He is not acting like a leader. He is incompetent to hold this position, in my view. End of that public comment. Next public comment comes from Keely Witzel. Subject matter: Protect Illinois Communities Act. Comment reads: as a longtime DuPage County resident, I'm appalled by Sheriff Mendrick's new news release that he believes the Protect Illinois Communities Act violates the Second Amendment rights. What about the rights of the children to safely attending school? Families attend church services, movie theaters, and shopping malls. What about the right of domestic violence victims, innocent women and children? What about the rights of emergency physicians who try to save gunshot victims whose organs are too mangled by these high-capacity assault weapons and leave these doctors helpless? The trauma caused by these weapons not only leave physical scars, but also emotional ones that never completely heal. Common sense tells me that fewer guns make it safer for everyone, including police officers who are often overpowered by these weapons. The Protect Illinois Communities Act is a step in the right direction to help protect residents of our state. If Sheriff Mendrick is unable to abide by the oath to follow the laws of the state of Illinois, he should resign. Thank you. End of that public comment. Next public comment comes from Rebecca Fortner. Subject matter: assault weapons ban and our sheriff's refusal to enforce. I would like to know what the penalty will be for our sheriff who has publicly refused to enforce the assault weapon ban law. It is clear that our sheriff, who is funded by our tax dollars, favors politics over safety. It would seem that a law enforcement officer favoring more assault weapons over safety is not a law enforcement officers at all. This is frightening as a citizen and as a mother of 2 children. It is worth pointing out that as an assault weapons ban can work, it has worked in the United States previously, and they work in other countries. Please hold our sheriff accountable. Politics cannot trump safety. End of that public comment. Next public comment reads from Valley Gupta. Subject matter: Sheriff Mendrick's public comment or statement. To the members of the Judicial and Public Safety Committee and Sheriff's Administration Office, we are writing to voice our shock and dismay in reading Sheriff Mendrick's news release regarding the non-enforcement of the currently Protect Illinois Community Act. Sheriff Mendrick's statement is in total violation of the state mission of the DuPage County Sheriff's Office. I quote from the mission statement: enforcing the laws of the state of Illinois and county of DuPage by being fair and impartial, excel in the highest standards of professionalism, integrity, and efficiency. The residents of DuPage County supported this law as evidenced by the DuPage County Board unanimous resolution on October 25th, 2022, that asked our state and federal governments to enact an assault weapons ban. Further, this state law was enacted pursuant to the legal democratic process for passing laws in Illinois by the duly elected representatives of the people of Illinois. It is up to the courts, not individual sheriffs, to decide whether a law is unconstitutional or not. It is an extremely dangerous precedent for individual police or sheriffs to unilaterally pick and choose the laws to enforce. The sheriff is making DuPage County less safe and unstable by doing so. We ask that the board communicate in strong terms to the sheriff that he should publicly correct his positions and dutifully enforce the laws of the state of Illinois. Thank you. End of that public comment. Next public comment is from Tanya B. Subject matter: DuPage County Sheriff's Office refusal to enforce Protect Illinois Communities Act. As a resident of DuPage, I am disgusted, though unfortunately not shocked, by the public statements made by the DuPage County Sheriff's Office and Sheriff Mendrick announcing his refusal to enforce the Protect Illinois Community Act. This is currently law in Illinois, and it is the sheriff's job to enforce the laws of their county and state, whether politics agree with those laws or not. It is not within a sheriff's duty to choose which laws to enforce or to provide public and personal interpretations of legality of laws. Allowing such behavior by a sheriff office without any corrective action sends law enforcement down a slippery slope. Where will the line be drawn? How many other laws will be willfully ignored by law enforcement in the future? I'm curious how the county board can penalize the sheriff's office for refusing to enforce law it does not agree with. Can funding be cut? Anything else? This is declaration of duty. It cannot be unchecked. End of that public comment. Next public comment comes from Amy Middleton, subject matter: Sheriff's Office. Please urge Sheriff Mendrick to uphold all laws, not just the ones he deems worthy. End of the public comment. Next public comment comes from Tracy Gizmornis. Subject matter: Protect Illinois Communities Act. As a 25-year resident of DuPage County, I'm saddened and frustrated by our sheriff's the sheriff's response to protect Illinois Communities Act. His refusal to enforce the law is mind-blowing and dangerous. His blatant disregard for our laws is unacceptable, and I am wondering how the DuPage County Board will hold him accountable. I have 3 kids in DuPage County public schools, and their safety is paramount. Watching mass shootings, school shootings, mall shootings, parade shootings become everyday occurrences with nothing being done at the national level is crazy. I was proud of Illinois for taking a stand and legislating for gun safety. We know banning assault-style weapons has worked in the past while leaving responsible gun owners unaffected. How does a sheriff not see the value of this law? And how does a sheriff get to pick and choose which law he upholds? End of that public comment. Next public comment comes from Rebecca Fortner. Subject matter, assault weapons ban a sheriff refusal to enforce. I would like to know what the penalty will be for our sheriff who has publicly refused to enforce the assault weapons ban law. It is clear that our sheriff, who is funded by our tax dollars, favors politics over safety. It would seem that law enforcement officers favoring more assault weapons over safety is not a law enforcement officer at all. This is frightening as a citizen and as a mother of 2 children. It is worth pointing out that an assault weapons ban can work. It has worked in the United States previously and has worked in other countries. Please hold our sheriff accountable. Politics cannot trump safety. End of that public comment. Next public comment from Elizabeth True. No subject matter. As a member of DuPage County, I ask that you hold our sheriff's office and Sheriff Mendrick accountable for using it to enforce the Protect Illinois Communities Act, which has been signed into law. He is our sheriff and he is funded by our dollars. It is the duty of the sheriff's office to uphold laws as written, not to pick and choose which laws that they want to enforce. If they are allowed to ignore the laws, where does it stop? Do we allow the sheriff decide what is against the law and what isn't? For our government to continue to function properly, we need to insist that those that have been elected to uphold our laws continue to do so. End of that public comment. Next public comment comes from Becky Kodziel, subject matter Sheriff Mendrick's statement. Dear board members, on October 25th, 2022, just a few months ago, I watched the DuPage County Board vote unanimously for a resolution supporting an assault weapons ban. And while there are a few members that have changed since the last election, several of the new members publicly stated their support for such a ban at the Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America town hall earlier that same month. I voted in November believing in what I had seen and been told. So I hope that you are all upset as I am about Sheriff Mendrick's news release regarding the non-enforcement of currently effective Protect Illinois Communities Act. I am grateful to see Board President Deb Conroy, members Yu, Lucy Chang Evans, Liz Chaplin, Mary Fitzgerald Ozog, Paula Deacon Garcia, and Don Desart publicly state that they stand behind the legislation passed to ban assault weapons. I apologize if I missed anyone. There may be other board members that are also agreed that I did not see on social media at this time. I would hope that you all agree that Sheriff Mendrick's job does not include deciding whether a law is unconstitutional or not, that it does not include deciding which law he will enforce. As Governor Pritzker has said, you don't get to choose which laws you comply with in the state of Illinois. This would set a dangerous precedent for our county and for our community. We've already heard and known the facts proving that assault weapon bans save lives. This is not the concern of today. It is up to the courts, not the individual sheriff, to decide whether a law is unconstitutional or not. The sheriff is making DuPage County less safe and unstable by doing so. We ask that the sheriff publicly correct his position and dutifully enforce the laws of the state of Illinois. Thank you, Becky and Tom Kosel, Clarendon Hills, Illinois. End of that public comment. Next public comment comes from Leslie S. Subject matter Sheriff Mendrick's refusal to enforce the Protect Illinois Communities Act. Well, the Protect Illinois Communities Act cannot bring back the lives lost in Highland Park during the 4th of July parade. It was certainly a step in the right direction and one I was proud that our state enacted. To hear then the various law enforcement agencies, including our very own DuPage County Sheriff Department and in particular Sheriff Mendrick's refusal to enforce the law, was a slap in the face of democracy. As a resident of Illinois and DuPage County, I follow the laws to the best of my ability, and I would expect no less from Sheriff Mendrick and all law enforcement officers. If anything, they should be leading the residents of this county and state, not causing havoc by blatantly refusing to enforce the law. This flagrant declaration of duty could send law enforcement further down an already slippery slope. Sheriff Mendrick and his department are funded by the taxpayers of DuPage County. Perhaps those funds should be withheld until they perform their duties as stipulated by law. End of that public comment. Next comment is from Chelsea Irola, subject matter Sheriff news release. I am concerned, confused, and angry over Sheriff James Mendrick's news release communicating that his office will not be enforcing House Bill 5471. The sheriff's job is to enforce and uphold laws, not to interpret it based on his belief of the Second Amendment. I'm asking for the committee to hold the sheriff accountable. Every citizen of DuPage County deserves to be safe and for the sheriff's office to enforce the law that is written. End of that public comment. Last public comment comes from Emily Beerhalter, subject matter Sheriff Mendrick. It is not the role of an elected official to personally decide which state laws to enforce and or ignore. The sheriff cannot like or agree with specific laws, but as law enforcement officer, he needs to enforce the law. I strongly disagree with the position he has taken to pick and choose what he feels like enforcing. He's a sheriff who's not only concerned about his personal priorities and not the safety of the citizens of DuPage County. End of public comment, or end of that comment, and end of public comment.
Thank you, Jason. We have two more in-person public comments. The first one is from Ioana Fernandez.
Good morning. My name is Ioana Fernandez and I'm a resident of DuPage County. Last week, I saw a statement issued by Sheriff Mandrick that deeply concerned me. In that statement, the sheriff, whose main job is law enforcement, refuses to enforce the law. The sheriff believes that he can choose which laws to enforce. Gun violence is at an all-time high in this country. Last year alone, over 44,000 people died by guns in the United States. As a parent of young children, I live with the trauma of having explained our boys how to keep themselves safe and run in case of a mass shooting. I grew up with a dad in the military during civil unrest in my birth country. I have the utmost respect for law enforcement. I know how stressful the job of a law enforcement officer is. A few years ago, I took a Citizens Police Academy class in my town. The classes helped me understand how police officers do their jobs. I also learned that the use of armed force is always the last resort. As a matter of fact, when I asked how often the police officers had to use their guns in our community, the answer was none. So to hear that our sheriff encourages gun owners not to follow the law by saying that he will not enforce the law is outrageous. This law is not preventing anyone from bearing arms, nor does it take guns away from anyone. More so, this law codifies the state police internet-based system for reporting stolen firearms and enhances security around certain gun transfers. Most responsible gun owners I know are not against regulations. As a matter of fact, the Second Amendment starts with a well-regulated militia. We live in a democracy, and in order to continue doing so, we all have to follow the law. Laws are made to protect us and help us live in communities. Without laws, and without laws, there will be anarchy. Sheriff's statement encourages people to stop following the law. If we do not agree with the law, there is a system in place to address that, but that is not up to the sheriff to solely decide that the law is unconstitutional. That job is for the courts. Thank you, Chairwoman Deb Conroy, for your statement in support of the law, and county board members for voting to support a state and federal ban on assault weapons. I'm asking the sheriff to retract his statement and do the job he was elected to do. He works for all of us taxpayers, not for the gun lobby. And I am asking this committee and the board to take any disciplinary actions available to address this situation. Thank you for your time and for your work.
Thank you. Next up is Joe Amori.
Good morning, Joe Amori. I live in Villa Park. I've been a resident of DuPage County since 1972. I support the police, always have. And up until this statement that was put out by Sheriff Mandrick, I fully supported him and his efforts. I had nothing but praise for him at that time until today. I agree with all the other comments where people have been appalled by his public statements. Basically, the courts determine what is constitutional. He is a law enforcement officer, and he and anyone else under his command are required to enforce the laws of Illinois as written. If they decline to do this, then I feel that they should be removed from office for dereliction of duties, for not enforcing all laws applicable to their sworn duties. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the public comments. Next up, we have the chairwoman's remarks. That's me. I had something prepared, but in the essence of time, we have a lot of business to cover. So I'm going to save that for the next meeting. And with that, can I get a motion to approve the meeting minutes from January 3rd? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. And we are moving on to procurement requisitions. I need my glasses for this. Okay, so can I get a motion for JPSP 004523, recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to Northeast DuPage Family and Youth Services to provide services to youths who are at risk of domestic violence and trauma for a contract total amount not to exceed $36,000.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, wait, any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Next week, go to resolutions. Can I get a motion for JPSR 003823, acceptance of an extension of time for the U.S. Department of Justice Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services, Law Enforcement, Mental Health and Wellness Act 2020 grant?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Member you?
Yes, there wasn't a lot of information about this in the packet, so I was just wondering if there was some background.
Okay, Jason?
I don't know if the sheriff's office is on, but all this is an extension to that grant, allowing them for more time to be able to use the funds. So no additional cost to the county or anything, or from the grant.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Next, can I get a motion for JPSR 003923, additional appropriation for the neutral site custody exchange fund
So moved.
in the amount of $19,900? Is there a second? Second, member you. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Next, can I get a motion for JPSR 003723, additional appropriation for the probation services fees fund in the amount of $135,000?
So moved. Second.
Okay, move in a second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Next, we move to budget transfers. Can I get a motion for the transfer of funds from accounts from part-time help and employee medical and hospital insurance to regular salaries, employer share IMRF, employer share Social Security, and miscellaneous meeting expense in the amount of $28,690. There's been a motion and a second. So is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. So next up we have, can I get a motion for the transfer of funds from various accounts
So moved.
to salary and wage adjustments in the amount of $20,162? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Next, we have the transfer of funds from software maintenance agreements to information technology SVC in the amount of $100,000.
So moved.
Do we have any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Next up, we have budget transfers. The transfer of funds from interpreter services to IT equipment small value in the amount of $30,551 due to supply chain issues. Is there any discussion? Actually, can I get a move?
So moved.
Okay. And a second. Okay. Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. We have moved on to change orders now. Can I get a motion to change order for county contract 5294-0001 issued to Path Recovery Foundation to extend the time period from January 30th, 2023 to June 30th, 2024. Okay, we've got a motion in a second. There's no change to the contract total amount. Any discussion on this? Hearing none. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. And now let's go to old business. Is there any old business? Okay, any new business? Okay, let's go with member Ozog first. And then,
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was not hoping to start the new year out this way. But on a personal note, my husband and I just came back from a long anticipated trip to Spain. We were in 3 major cities in Spain. These are cities, Madrid is the size of Chicago. And what I experienced is something that I've really not experienced in my adult life. I graduated from college in 1980. I have walked streets, watching behind my back and in fear for 40 years. When we were in Spain, we were out in the evenings. The streets were filled. And the biggest difference is that we were not afraid of being shot. I do know one statistic, it's either Scotland or England. There is 7 guns per 100 people. In this country, there's 123 guns per 100 people. So I firmly believe, and also let me tell you as well, in terms of supporting law enforcement, on this board, I have supported every initiative of the sheriff's office. I am also a 10-year Navy mom. So this is not about not supporting our law enforcement, but I strongly believe that this committee needs to consider asking the sheriff to retract his statement. And if that doesn't happen, to consider censure, because we do not have freedom. The people who advocate for the Second Amendment and their freedoms have taken away our freedoms. And my husband and I experienced that earlier this month in Spain. To walk without fear in the evenings, to see hundreds of people out on the streets, it's an amazing thing. And we don't have that here. I am completely in support of the legislation that was passed, as was this whole board. So his statements last week, on behalf of my constituents, that's what I want this committee to consider. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Ozog. Member Chaplin.
Yes, thank you, Chair Evans. With regards to the public comment, I agree with every public comment that was made. And I have to say that I'm deeply troubled with this statement that our sheriff put out last week. It was irresponsible and reckless. But more to that, his statement had an eerie similarity to statements made by this organization. It's the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. And this organization has about 3,000 sheriffs, I believe, that are members and paying members, and other sheriffs that aren't members, but that subscribe to their beliefs. I looked on our online checkbook to see if our county had paid dues to this organization, and I didn't see anything, but I will be checking with our auditor's office to see if we pay any dues to this association. But this association refers to themselves as peacekeepers, which our sheriff has done numerous times in public. He has referred to himself as a peacekeeper. This association of constitutional sheriffs, they have ties with Oath Keepers and other far-right organizations, fringe organizations. They believe that the sheriff has more power and authority than the governor and the president. They believe that they're the ultimate law enforcement authority. And, it's very, very scary. In recent years, this group has encouraged sheriffs to not enforce COVID restrictions and gun laws, specifically laws that ask residents to register their guns. So I am very concerned with this movement by a group of sheriffs. I'm concerned that our sheriff may share these fringe beliefs. And that's one thing I'm very concerned about. Also, as people said, the sheriff swore an oath to uphold the laws of this county and of the state. He has a constitutional he has a duty to do that. If he cannot enact laws of this state and retract his statement, then I really think our sheriff needs to seriously consider whether whether this is the right job for him, and that he should, if it's not the right job, if he can't enforce the laws of the state, then he needs to really consider stepping aside. We need somebody in that office that's responsible and that will uphold the laws of this state.
Thank you, Member Chaplin. Member Dessart.
Thank you. I too agree with everything that our
public commenters said in their responses this morning. I support law enforcement 100%, and I have a track record of doing that with my votes on this board. On October 25th, this board unanimously approved the support of that legislation. And I too believe that Sheriff Mendrick is being irresponsible and in fact, drawing conflict and issue when there was none. I think Sheriff Mendrick is giving a black eye to each and every man and woman working under him in the sheriff's office. I believe that Sheriff Mendrick is also letting our constituents know that they too can choose to pick and choose which laws they follow. I think Sheriff Mendrick's comments last week are irresponsible and egregious. He is in the law enforcement business, not the legislative business, and perhaps he should step down as sheriff and run for state senate or state legislature if he wants to create laws that he would be free to do so. But right now, his job is to enforce the laws. So I would like to see Sheriff Mendrick retract his statement, his irresponsible statement from last week. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Dessart. Any other discussion? Member Yu?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. There were many people in public comment today who are asking Sheriff Mendrick to public correct his position, and I am also of that opinion. I think it's a complete contradiction that DuPage County Board as a body, before I was elected, had decided unanimously to support this piece of legislation, and for us not to do anything about it at this point. I believe Sheriff Mendrick is setting a bad example for other law enforcement officers. He is our top officer for DuPage County. He's supposed to be a leader in enforcing and making sure that he's upholding the law. And for the fact that he is setting such a bad example, not only for law enforcement officers, but to the public at large, just to decide what law he's going to enforce and what law he is not. How is that really being a person of leadership?
Thank you, Member Yu. Member Krajewski?
Yeah, thank you, Chairwoman, and great job on your first meeting. I just, whether it's in a future meeting here at JPS or maybe it's at a regular board meeting, and I know there's a lot of concerns expressed today about safety, and I think a lot of people share that concern about safety here in DuPage County. But I know with regards to the cash bail legislation, the Supreme Court put a stay on it, and they're going to decide hopefully sometime soon in March whether the law is constitutional or not. Assuming they uphold the Kankakee judge, then the law will be unconstitutional and it'll be the old law that was there before. Assuming that the Supreme Court reverses the cash bail and says it's constitutional, I believe the legislature just passed a change to that law, and maybe we could invite our state's attorney, Bob Berlin, to come in. I know Bob and then two Democratic state's attorneys were in the negotiations, and my understanding is they made substantial changes to that, and they took much of what our state's attorney, Bob Berlin, had been proposing. And I know this, well, some of the members on the board's changed over, but for a year and a half, tried to bring a lot of that stuff forward. You know, I guess it's better late than never. You know, we weren't able to have really discussions regarding that, but ultimately Bob was able to get down in Springfield, and they made substantial changes. And I think we need to understand what those are now, assuming that the Supreme Court, you know, reverses and says it's constitutional. But then if that happens, the new law, which I believe was just passed in December, will take effect. But I'd like to see if we can bring him in either JPS or county board to explain that aspects. I think hopefully it'll be a step towards making DuPage safer too, as comments today about the unanimous support of the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Krajewski. I wrote down next up, Member Guston.
Thank you, Chairman. And congratulations.
Thank you.
Doing a great job. Yes, well, public safety is not a one item issue. We've seen mass shootings. We know that it's a multifaceted issue, and Highland Park actually had a ban on the sale and also ownership of weapons, and actually where the parade took place was a no-gun zone. So we know a lot of times legislations and laws can't do what they're set out to do. However, one item does not fix everything. I know on the city council, I voted to ban the sale of assault rifles in the city of Naperville. And then they took it up in Springfield, and now we are where we are at. The reality is it's a multifaceted issue, and we need to probably have a task force, which is what I would recommend, on the mental health aspect of mass killings, the enforcement of how do we enforce and identify individuals that may become a threat to our communities. We should have local officials in that task force, and those local officials should not be just political drones. They should actually be local officials that care about their community, and also the gun professionals in the industry. We need to be able to get everybody into a room together and figure out what we can do to reduce the opportunity of those individuals who, may have mental health issues, who feel as though they have nothing left and they decide that they want to go out and do a mass killing. So I would love to see a resolution go to Springfield to initiate a task force and talk about what that task force looks like, and have that task force work on solutions, real solutions, because this is a multifaceted issue. It's not just a one-off issue, and we need to get some real solutions. I've lived in this state all my life, and it's always been one item that has come up. And the reality is that it's not just one item. There's many more facets to it, and we have to bring those professionals in those fields together to talk about how we can resolve this issue. So I'm hoping that this board will consider doing a resolution of Springfield to initiate a task force and get something done, or even at the county level doing a task force. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Member Guston. I have Zay and Member Zay, and then Member Schwarzy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We know this is a hot issue with everybody, and I want to thank everybody for their public comment. And a lot of people have said it's the sheriff has been irresponsible with his comments. But what's even more irresponsible is Member Chaplin, with no information whatsoever, saying that our sheriff has ties to the Oath Keepers, which is a far right group, even though she looked through the checkbook and said, oh, well, I don't see any information on that. I'm going to check with the auditor. Isn't it irresponsible to maybe in our position to get that information first before you make such a claim towards our sheriff? I find it irresponsible, and it just seems par for the course on this. Yes, this is a tough issue. And again, not this board, the past board passed that. And we also had some amendments that wanted stricter penalties for those who commit crimes with guns. That was not taken up by the legislature. So again, we asked for more restriction on ghost guns. We asked for other restrictions that wasn't looked at. But again, before we jump forward, we should have our sheriff come in and talk about. We should know what we're talking about before. I mean, I read the sheriff's statement, 2 paragraphs. Yes, I'm concerned about, but I think he mostly was talking about registering guns, which we've seen the Supreme Court rule down. So we know before we go, asking for the sheriff to resign, we're pretty sure that this legislation is going to go to the Illinois Supreme Court and probably the United States Supreme Court at that point. So before we make accusations and say that our sheriff possibly has ties to a right-wing extremist groups, maybe we should know the facts first before we do that. Thank you.
Point of personal privilege. When your name is used, the member is allowed to rebut on that.
Oh, okay.
So thank you. I appreciate it. So I didn't say that our sheriff, I said that this constitutional organization of sheriffs and peacekeepers has ties to the Oath Keepers, not our sheriff. And I am concerned, and I said this, that our sheriff may shares the beliefs of this group. Now, I am going to look to see if we do pay dues to this organization. Also, I mean, I didn't want to bring these out, but I'm going to bring this out. This is the logo of this peacekeeper, the sheriff's group's organization. Our sheriff has used it on his Facebook when he says that he feels that the First Amendment constitutional right to free speech has been completely trampled on by a governor who threatened us. time and time again, he uses this eagle and this symbol talking about the Safety Act. So I am very concerned about our sheriff and his beliefs and this sheriff's organization that encourages these sheriffs to believe that they are above the law and go against laws. Now, it's a coincidence maybe that our sheriff used this eagle when he put his statement out about the COVID restrictions. He used this eagle when he put his statement out on the Safety Act. And now he's using it. Well, he's saying now he opposes these gun laws, which this group, if you go on their website, they specifically ask sheriffs to oppose gun registration laws, which is what this law does. So I am concerned, and I'm bringing it up because it is a true concern. He is not acting as a professional. It's not, like I said, it's reckless what he's done. He's, not following the law is giving other people the sense that, well, if the sheriff doesn't follow the law, then I don't follow the law. So I do have deep concerns. And like I said, I've heard other people mention this eagle on his Facebook as well. So I'm just saying, and I didn't say he had ties. I said this association has ties and that he may, follow the beliefs of this association, which is kind of radicalization of our law enforcement. And that's what it basically is.
Man, member Chaplin, could you pull that up again, that picture? I just want to see that one. The one you said with the eagle. And
Point of order, she didn't mention Mr. Zay's name.
Oh, just asking. Yeah, that's all I was asking.
Okay, let's move on to member Schwarzy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to, I guess, go on the record that, I was proud to be on this board back in October of 2022 when we voted unanimously and bipartisanly to support the legislation for not even this bill, but for sensible, safe gun laws. And, and I was even happily, I guess, I was happy to see the bipartisanship from the other side, from the other side of the fence, actually say what we were going to support didn't go far enough, and even ask for even a tougher sort of support. And so I just want to say that I stand by my vote and this board's vote to unanimously and bipartisanly support the gun safety legislation. Of course, it was the previous board. Thank you very much.
Thank you, member Schwarzy. Member Eka.
Didn't think I'd start off the year like this, but anyway, when I read the sheriff's comments, I understood it to be primarily about registration, in that he does not have the resources to put a task force of deputy sheriffs or whoever else works at the sheriff's department to go door to door to try and start a registration of guns, just like he doesn't have the ability to have a task force to go door to door to see who's got illegal drugs. It's either answer the 911 calls and do his job that he's been doing, or try and go door to door. So unless you want to triple, quadruple his budget, I don't think it's not realistic, and the legislation is not realistic for him to be able to go out and do that. That's number one. Number two, if someone is very concerned about the sheriff's beliefs, then I would suggest you call the sheriff and talk to him about that, instead of coming to this board floor and spewing speculation about what may or may not be true based on a picture or something else. If he confirms your belief that he's in with right-wing groups or something like that, then go ahead and speak about it. But to come here and just, I got a picture and it looks like this and it's an eagle like this, then he must maybe possibly is in with these right-wing groups, is, I think, irresponsible. And finally, I've heard people sit here on the board floor today and tell us how they've never not backed police, they've never not backed security and safety in our DuPage County, yet we on 3 occasions tried to pass a resolution to urge the governor not to sign the Safety Act bill. We had our state's attorney be against that. We had our sheriff against that. We had the organization of police come here and speak against that. And yet 3 times we were not able to pass that resolution because of the people who are talking today that they're all in favor of safety voted against it. So don't come here to the board floor and tell me you're so tough on crime when we had to have our state's attorney go down, and thank God, got a lot of concessions through the state legislature at the last minute to make that law a lot more palatable, even though it's still not perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Utkoff. Member Ozog?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to read from the sheriff's statement of last week. I, among many others, believe that House Bill 5471 is a clear violation of the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution. Therefore, as the custodian of the jail and chief law enforcement official for DuPage County, that neither myself nor my office will be checking to ensure that lawful gun owners register their weapons with the state, nor will we be arresting or housing law-abiding individuals that have been arrested solely with non-compliance of this act. I hear defiance there. I hear nothing about staffing. I hear nothing about anything to do with inability to do this because of budget or personnel. I hear I'm not going to enforce this because I believe that it is a clear violation. And that is not the job of the sheriff. That is the job of the courts to interpret it. So as of now, the law stands and it should be, however it may work out, enforced. And that's the major issue here. And we also are not talking about the Safety Act today. And the Safety Act at its heart also deals with cash bond, which is an entirely different issue in terms of safety. And this discussion here appears to be denigrating my colleagues who feel that the sheriff has acted out of line, and clearly our constituents agree with us. So again, I would like to call for the sheriff to retract his statement, and if not, for our board to consider censuring him because he is in complete opposition to what we agreed to last year as the former board. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Ozog. Any other discussion? Member Zay?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. A question for our state's attorney. Do we have the ability to censure the sheriff of the county?
I'll have to look into that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? I will say that this last week's county, was it last week? Just last week, the county board meeting was a bipartisan love fest. This looks like the opposite of that. And I want us to just, as county board members, to be careful not to get baited into arguments that are not actionable. Like, let's work together on this. And with that, I'm going to read the statement from County Board Chair Deborah Conroy that she put out last week. And this is something that I think we need to keep in mind. It says, I was disappointed to read the statement released today by DuPage County Sheriff Jim Mendrick. On October 25th, the DuPage County Board heard a moving account provided by Highland Park Mayor Nancy Rotering. She detailed the devastating impact one shooter and one assault weapon had on her town. That day, the board voted to approve a state ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. Illinois Public Act 102-1116 accomplishes those two goals. As chair of the DuPage County Board, I stand behind the legislation passed to ban assault weapons. As Governor Pritzker has said, you don't get to choose which laws you comply with in the state of Illinois. And I believe in DuPage County, we should not be playing politics with state laws. That was out last week. She represents the county board. So with that, can I get a motion to adjourn? Moved and seconded. All those in favor? All those opposed? Any opposed? Okay, we are adjourned.